Hello, this is James. I'm spring cleaning backlog footage, and I've got a lot of old Metal Gear Online gameplay to share, partly because, well, the game's offline for good. I freelanced extensively for PlayStation Official Magazine about Metal Gear Online from about 2008 to early 2010, which basically paid rent through grad school. It was always useful to hoard stock footage for that, and I guess the habit never really broke, which is why I've got all this stuff. As you see, this is footage taken while playing as Raiden on the Japanese servers. This is the Virtuous Vista map from the Metal Gear Solid 4 offline game, Act 2, a stage that heavily favors sniping. Raiden, of course, is very much a close-quarters combat character, which can put him at a disadvantage here unless you play him right. Listen to me talking in present tense as if this could ever happen again. Basically, you need to start off by taking cover, then sneaking toward the enemy's base, and then taking care of their snipers up close. It could also be a lot of fun to use as mobility to get into the enemy spawn area, a strategy that his design very much flatters on this map. Obviously, spawn camping can be abused, and I never found it much fun to, simply frustrate the other team. In this instance, access to their spawn area can be prevented by an opposing team with defenses that cover a variety of directions to hit Raiden behind his wall of bullet deflection. So, honestly, Raiden getting into the base in the first place is highly preventable. So if you were playing as Raiden, you might as well consider it earned. Raiden's two main modes of attack were a sword combo and a straight stab. You could do the sword combo standing up or crouching, but the standing combo was usually best, since it gave him the speed that he lost while crouching, making him able to plow through a number of enemies at once. It basically made him a whirling cyber albinoid dervish, all blade and hilt. Basically bleached hell. A one-of-a-kind unique snowflake that somehow collects itself into a snowball growing in magnitude along the twin spectra of murder and despair, collecting enough momentum so that it would ultimately crush your soul and have your femurs as trophies over its fireplace. If you're wondering how a single snowflake can collect itself multiple times into a greater unit composed entirely of instances of itself, stay away from Metal Gear canon. It's basically the same thing. Which of course is why we love it. Now here's an example of how you would have used Raiden strategically. The enemy figured he'd have better luck shooting the guy without a sword blocking his bullets, so I stepped between him and my teammate as a shield. Now, the other guy was using auto-aim, so putting Raiden in between him and my teammate did two things. First, it blocked the enemy fire with the sword, and it actually turned him around so that my teammate could shoot him in the back. Of course this didn't happen, but Raiden can handle it. Now here's how you would cautiously infiltrate the enemy base. If they had anybody stationed on this tower, this wouldn't have been possible. Here's a jump point that Raiden can use that actually normally would take two soldiers to boost up and then the other one to give a hand up, so it takes quite a bit of time for two soldiers to get in there. Raiden can just go straight in. I typically used Raiden almost exclusively with auto-aim. This is a bad idea if you're covering your team from multiple enemies, of course, but it's ideal for keeping a single enemy in sight, guaranteeing that you'll block every bullet and taking care of them when you arrive. To summarize a previous point, Raiden using auto-aim and played well is basically inevitability in action. Here we're looking at a pretty relaxed game, and the players are all pretty casual. It illustrates some of these aspects of his design while also allowing for a lot of careless decisions. Now comparing his appearance here as opposed to his appearance in Rising or Revengeance illustrates a really interesting point about verticality in Metal Gear Online. In Metal Gear Rising, of course, Raiden has the absurd verticality shown in the MGS4 cutscenes, the kind of jump height that's appropriate for the launch and slash genre that Rising inhabits. Other examples being Bayonetta, the Devil May Cry series. In Metal Gear Online, however, Raiden had a much more measured, even believable, augmented jumping ability. Having the ability to jump onto a platform about 1.5 feet taller than you are is pretty remarkable in its own right. Metal Gear Online had some weird verticality going on anyway. You could increase your character's height, but you only increased height by increasing your elevation, by which I mean you could only go higher by using the environment or by using each other in the instance of boosting, which is in itself another use of the environment. Jumping was strictly a lateral affair. You either go back, left, right, or forward. To the degree that jumping interacts with the third dimension whatsoever, the third dimension in this case being the one that goes up and down, its purpose was to reach the termination of a ledge faster so that your character could fall, either to ambush an enemy or to get away. The only real vertical decision you could make was to fall. Either an ambush, getting away, by mistake. The possibilities are very limited. Now, Metal Gear Rising clearly regards verticality as a key component of Raiden's character. I think it's interesting that Metal Gear Online also regards that verticality as important, but it shows it in its own way. It runs into this problem. How do you emphasize a character's vertical nature in a game whose core vertical movement depends upon environment and not player character actions? Raiden's in-game character requires similitude in order to fit with the rest of the game. His powers have to fit on the spectrum of actions that other characters can also make. Raiden's vertical advantages therefore don't come from his ability to perform a unique set of actions. Metal Gear Online simply changes the criteria for his performance of shared actions. It also removes negative consequences of other shared actions. This is true of his character generally, right down to his beloved bullet deflection, which is an idiosyncratic version of the riot shield available to standard player characters, except that he has a sword behind it. In order to emphasize his vertical nature, Metal Gear Online therefore removes the criteria necessary for climbing onto crates. As we saw before, at certain preset points on the maps, player characters can team up to either boost or lift each other onto ledges that serve as access points for flanking the other team. The act of boosting or lifting is a criterion for that shared action. So here's the point of compromise. Raiden still depends upon the environment to increase his elevation, but he can do so with fewer obstacles. Very much a different way of communicating a vertical character than in, say, Revengeance. Metal Gear Online also makes Raiden a vertical character when it gives him the ability to fall from any height without consequence. Let's look at the other end of it, the removal of consequence. When normal player characters fall from a medium height, they will take light injury, and when they fall from a great height, they die. Metal Gear Online removes those consequences for Raiden. When he lands, he will take no damage, and he'll also enter a unique landing animation. That's all for now, and there'll be more to come.